Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Congressional Forum on Investing in the Next Generation of Africa.
Please be seated, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Congressional Forum on Investing in the Next Generation in Africa. We have a very distinguished panel here with us this morning. First, I want to welcome our fellows, our ambassadors, our representatives from Africa, from the Congress, from the White House, the State Department, and other federal agencies. And I want to welcome all those who are here from the civil society organizations, from business and universities. We are very lucky to have this opportunity this morning to talk with some very distinguished people about Africa. Now, you will recognize immediately that I am not Cokie Roberts. Cokie, who is a very distinguished reporter and commentator for ABC News and NPR, was called away suddenly yesterday, a family issue, and regrets very much that she can't be with us today. I'm the president of IREX. We are very privileged and honored to have a role in the support. Thank you. Thank you. In the support of the implementation of this conference. To my right is my colleague from Seychelles, Ms. Vangadasamy, who will represent us as a fellow in this conference. Next to her is Senator John Boozman. Senator Boozman has been active with respect to issues in Africa since his days in the House of Representatives and has a very intimate knowledge of the issues regarding that continent and its countries. Next to Senator Boozman is Congresswoman Karen Bass. Congresswoman Bass is in her second term in the U.S. House of Representatives, and she has, from her very first days of presence in the House, put herself into a position of leadership on African issues, and we're very honored to have you with us, Congresswoman. Next to Congresswoman Bass is Senator Coons. Senator Coons is well known to the African community as an advocate and an activist in all dimensions of engagement with Africa. And I believe he held his third conference on Africa this year, and he has been one of the leaders in developing U.S. relations with Africa. So we have also this morning, I'm going to ask our panelists a series of questions, a few questions, and then I'm going to ask for participation from the audience. And we hope we'll have a good participation and might spend, if we're lucky, half of our time hearing from the fellows with questions that they have, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. When we talk about investment in the next generation, of course we are talking about the financial and the economic and the commercial aspects of that relationship. But we're also talking about the empowerment of young people in civil society, in public service, in business, in all aspects of the development of mature, healthy societies across the continent. And with the background of that inspiring speech from Secretary Kerry, we have a lot to talk about this morning. So let me begin with our first question. I'm going to direct it to Senator Coons, but I will ask if there are other panelists who would like to contribute to that. I would look forward to their remarks as well. But Senator Coons, if you could just begin by telling us why you are supporting the Young African Leaders Initiative, And what is it in your background and in your experience that has led you to your commitment to Africa over the years?
Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you so much for a chance to be with you this morning. After that great speech by Secretary Kerry, and in advance of what I know will be a moving speech by our president, I hope we can hold your attention over the next hour. And I'm excited to hear your questions. Bob has asked, why am I passionate about receiving you, welcoming you, working in partnership with you? Why was I so excited to spend time with the 25 Yali Fellows at the University of Delaware earlier this summer? Why am I so eager to host a Tanzanian fellow in my office later this summer? Why do I host an annual conference? Why am I so excited, along with Karen in the Senate, to chair the African Affairs Subcommittee? And Karen chairs the relevant, she is the ranking on the relevant subcommittee in the House. Why is this so exciting to me? It is a small way of returning an enormous gift. As a young man, I traveled throughout East Africa, to Kenya, to Tanzania, to Uganda, and had many, many amazing experiences that literally changed my life. As a young student at the University of Nairobi, as a house guest in Buruburu Phase 3, as someone who hitchhiked across Uganda despite promising my mother I would not, because at the time there was a civil war, I was changed. And I was changed by a number of simple things. By astonishing hospitality, by an unending focus on family, by a deep-rooted faith and confidence in the future, by a knowledge of history and the connectedness between our nations and the tensions and challenges between our nations, and by a commitment to partnership rooted in kindness. I'll give one small example. So I'm taking a bus across Tanzania. My Swahili is is not so great. I get on the wrong bus. I go 14 hours in the wrong direction. I rub the sleep from my eyes. I get off the bus, and this is not Dar es Salaam. I'm near the lake. And I get off, and there is no one there I know, and I see no one, and I wander around, and I am nervous. And a gentleman comes across and says, "Habari asubuhi." I say, "Sawa sawa." He says, "You look lost." I say, "Very much so." He takes me under his wing. He spends hours helping me. He feeds me. He makes sure that I get to the right bus in the right place and get back on track. And I say to him simply, "How can I possibly repay you?" He says, "At any time in your life, when you see a traveler or a visitor from Africa, just be kind." In closing, it is my hope that this experience, that this young African leader's opportunity for you has been worth your time, your investment, your energy. It is my hope that the 49,000 who want to be here with us today but are not, we continue to engage with virtually. It is my hope that we transform this summer into a lifetime of engagement and leadership, and it is my hope that other Americans will in the future have my experience, and that they will come to realize how much they have to learn from you, and that we will do this together in the future. Asante sana.
Thank you. Senator Boozman, would you like to, I know you've had extensive experience in Africa and have a wonderful attachment to the continent. Would you share your thoughts, please?
Well, I'd just like to reiterate what Chris said, and he certainly is very kind, not only to those from Africa, but from those everywhere, and our world would be a lot better off if we all followed the Golden Rule. I think this program is so important. I think the way that you change the world is through personal relationships. I've had the opportunity to travel through a lot of Africa, getting to know other leaders, getting to not only know them superficially, but actually getting to know them and understand the problems that they have. Not only are you in a situation that you're here, but you're not just in Washington, you're out in real America. So much of what you see, before you come is based on television and things, and the media, and then the movies and things. And as those of you that have traveled being here, traveling throughout the United States, you understand now what real America is all about. And I know that you've received a very, very warm welcome. I want to give a special shout out to those of you that were in Arkansas. The other thing that's so important is not only, are you learning more about us, you're learning more about each other. You're here, you're building these very special relationships among your own selves. And that's probably as important as anything that you do in our country. So welcome, and it really is an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Congresswoman Bass, if I could pose a follow-on question to you, but ask you to bring in at the same time your experiences and your perspective from your own life. Could you give us some ideas about what you think is going well in the relationship with Africa, between the United States and Africa, or within the development sphere of Africa, and your perspective on that? And I hope, as I said, you'll bring in some personal views from your own life and your own commitment that would enrich that dialogue, and then we'll ask other members of the panel to join you as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity and honor to be here with you today. And I think as I look around the room, what's going well? Right here. I think it's a perfect example. The idea of the Yali Initiative, I think, really marks a new day in U.S.-Africa relations. To me, it is critically important, and I know it is to my colleagues, that we in the United States, and frankly around the world, change the way we view the continent of Africa, and first of all, understand that it is a continent with over 50 countries. And that it is a continent of opportunity, and that we no longer look at Africa as a continent where there is an abundance of needs and we need to approach it as charity as opposed to in a partnership with equal partners. I think Yali is a perfect example of that, and I think that in the time that President Obama has been president, and I'm new to Congress, I've been here, I'm in my second term, so the fact that there have been a number of initiatives under his leadership, I think is a perfect example of a change in how we view the continent, and I think that's an example of what's going right. U.S. business interest, and is certainly an example of when I know my colleague Senator Coons puts on his conference every year that it has grown, and that there are numerous businesses that are interested in investing in Africa. I come from Los Angeles, California, and all the way there, people are very interested and excited for ways to get involved, and how do they participate in all of the opportunities on the continent. I have to say for myself, it is such an incredible honor to sit here before you today. One of the main reasons I wanted to come to Congress and be a part of the legislature is so I could work on African issues. As an African American, most African Americans in the United States have no idea about their heritage. We know we're connected to Africa, we don't know where, so we claim the whole continent. But lately, due to advancements in science, we can actually do DNA testing, and I recently found out 2 years ago that my ancestors are from Cameroon. Now, I've not had the opportunity to visit Cameroon, but I will get there in the next couple of years because I want to go back and see where my ancestors are from. But as a young African American, during the time of the liberation struggles, I was very involved, especially in the anti-apartheid movement. And my colleague here, Senator Coons, didn't mention it, but I know he was very involved during that time as well. And so to work and to fight for freedom in South Africa, and to actually never have the opportunity to go to South Africa until I was a member of Congress, it was a real honor to participate in support of the liberation struggles back 20, 30 years ago, and now to come forward and be a member of Congress and work in support of development and improving U.S.-Africa relationships is a real honor. So I'm very, very glad to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else have a word to say about what's going well in Africa and whether there might be smaller projects, I'll call it, or smaller ambitions that could be expanded to the benefit of all, whether a particular country or region or the continent?
Let me add 3 things quickly, if I might. One is, you may have heard that we have 2 main political parties and we have some difficulty coming to agreement. One of the great things about the relationship between the United States and Africa is it is one of the few areas where there is genuine, broad, bipartisan support. Senator Boozman and I have been senators the same amount of time. And literally the first conversation I had with him as we were walking into the State of the Union address, he referenced that as a House member, he'd been to Africa, he was passionate about Africa, and he looked forward to working together in the Senate on issues related to Africa. There are a dozen Republican and Democratic senators and House members who are equally passionate about and engaged in Africa. And one of the greatest accomplishments of the Bush administration was the PEPFAR program, which has dedicated billions of dollars towards life-saving research, delivery of antiretrovirals, strengthening health institutions, and I don't think we should let this opportunity pass without recognizing that both the Bush and the Obama administrations have had significant partnership engagements around the role of women, around the rights of the disabled, around civil liberties, and around space for NGOs and for open conversation and support for free and fair elections. I do think generally these are positive trends both for the continent and for our values and our engagement together.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
I would like to add that the U.S. usually, from an African point of view, the U.S. is always seen as always being reactive on the African continent. And I think this program is a very good program because it shows that you are more proactive by engaging us, the youth, the young Africans beforehand, and even before the U.S. African Head of State Summits next week. So engaging us, giving us this opportunity to talk with each other, to know each other, and to share what is really happening in Africa right now, so that this also, our agenda, can be pushed forward in the summit next week. But for me, transformational change really happens through citizen empowerment. And this is what this program is actually doing. You are empowering us as young African leaders, not only to make transformational change from top to bottom, but from bottom to top.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Boozman?
Well, I would echo what Chris said as far as PEPFAR, but also the anti-malaria issues. You know, these are problems that, you know, some problems are so difficult throughout the world, but malaria, things like that, tropical disease, those are things that if we band together, those are problems that actually can be solved. And if we put our minds together, we have in much of the world, and I know that we are working very, very hard in that area and really having great success with not only, you know, through our leadership and help, but also through you know, your countries working together very, very well. We can be very proud of those efforts.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vangadasamy, could you talk perhaps about a different aspect there? There must be things, must be unexplored areas, opportunities that have not perhaps received the focus that they could have. And I wonder if you could, from the African perspective, give us your thoughts on what some of those areas might be and how we might take some concrete steps. It could be civil society, it could be public service, it could be business, it could include any dimension of the relationship that you think perhaps needs a bit more attention.
Upon my 6 weeks duration of program here in the United States, I had the opportunity to mingle with other of my African fellows from Nigeria, from Burundi, from Kenya. And I have been amazed to see a group of terrific and amazing young people. And Africa has so many opportunities. But when you look at the statistics at present in Africa, 60% of the African unemployed are youths. 70% of 70% of the African youths are living on $2 per day, and that is the international threshold of poverty. And for me, capacity building, investing in capacity building programs like these, and also empowering our youth, how to, when we go back to our African countries, how to lead youth initiatives, and how to maintain the networking so that we can engage other youths, empower other youths to really actually be skillful and to learn new skills, to acquire new skills, and to be further educated. But at the same time, you can say also that the poverty threshold is related to agriculture. 60% of the poor people is in agriculture, and our heads of states and even most of the programs are not directly related to agriculture. I think this is one of the key areas which we need to improve. It's agriculture and more capacity building programs like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I think now we'd like to turn to the audience for questions. We have two people with microphones, one on each side. I'm looking for them. I see one, I see two. Okay, so one of our colleagues from IREX on this side, another on that side. And I'd like to ask you to stand if you have a question, and we'll bring the microphone to you. Then please identify yourself by name and by your country. And I'm asking that we have the opportunity for the fellows to ask these questions. And please, if you would, make your intervention a question. In other words, please don't give us a commentary, a long speech. I know we would benefit from it, but this would, if you will restrain yourself a little bit and give us the question, we will have the opportunity for lots of colleagues to participate and for the panel to benefit from your question and give you answers. Any one of the panel may answer a question, so please, we're looking forward to getting started. So this young woman right in front of me, please, ask the first question.
Oh, thank you. My name is Aiden Boop. I'm from the Gambia. I was at Morgan State with the Public Management course. My question goes to the panel, any panelists, with regards to what you think the role of ICT plays in empowering the youth in Africa. You talk about the big gaps in agriculture, employment, et cetera. So how do you think ICT can be used, supported by America in covering the infrastructural divides that we have and the deficiencies?
The role of ICT?
ICT, information communication technology. Thank you.
You want me to tackle
Please,
that?
yes, anyone who would like to respond.
Let me make sure I understand your question. What's the role of what's the role of these things in tackling the huge gaps, particularly in agriculture? I think it is dramatic. I think smartphones, cell phones, whether it's SMS or apps, have the potential to dramatically transform agriculture in particular, because there are so many challenges in terms of infrastructure, markets, financing, modern techniques and access to resources that can really be changed, transformed by the use of this technology. On a visit to Ghana, I met with a young woman from upcountry who had traveled 8 hours to sit with me in Accra and to show me how the guinea hens that she had been raising for years and years and years, she was now able to get 3 times as much because of a program, just an SMS program that she would put, I have 50 guinea hens, what price can I get? And she would get a bid here, a bid here, a bid here, and instead of just taking what the man in the market next to her would give, she could go 2 towns, 3 towns, 4 towns away. You know this. I was just reading this morning about a smartphone app that allows cattle herders who have a big challenge with cattle rustling to keep an entire inventory of their entire herd and then go to law enforcement or settle in traditional ways claims about cattle having been stolen one from the other. I think it is almost limitless, the very real potential. In Nairobi, I got to visit with Ushahidi, which had done some remarkable work coding and programming for solutions for this next generation. I think the marriage of the deep strength and intellect and capacity of African leaders and these new technologies has almost limitless potential. And as we heard a moment ago, dealing with poverty, dealing with youth unemployment in Africa requires transforming agriculture, not into modern corporate, huge scale agriculture as you see in the United States or in even China or India. but in an agriculture that works for Africa, is unique for Africa, and where those solutions are driven by Africans. I think it has huge potential.
You know, I saw another example, and I can't remember if it was on the trip that Senator Coons and I took, but it was a part of the Feed the Future program where there was training going on with different groups of farmers, and they would essentially share information. So those farmers that weren't able to be a part of the training would then share what they learned with other farmers, exactly what you were saying, through the apps. So I think that the idea, the possibilities are really limitless.
I recall last week we had this, one of the group at the Humphrey School presented as a grand challenge, access to quality education. And one of the questions was the role of ICT and technology in Africa. But as much as I agree with the Senator and Congresswoman, but as much as we do not have infrastructure in place in Africa, electricity, and people do not know how to use the technology. Basic education is not even universal across. We have not even met that MDG goals right now. And we still are not investing in post-secondary and tertiary education. So before ICT can really, it is a necessity, but before it can be really implemented and we can fully understand and appreciate its how can I say that? The full potential of it, we need to at least have proper infrastructure in place and also educate our people about the need of it and how it can be used properly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think for the purpose of maybe being sure we get more questions, I'm going to ask, can we collect these 4 questions over here, Pauline, and then we can ask the panel to respond to questions as they feel they are able to do so, and that way we'll get more questions from the audience. So if you could just collect the questions and we'll respond.
Hi, I'm Ahmed Sunka from Malawi. I was at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. My question is to do with private sector development in Africa. We have noticed that America and most of the developed world is concentrated on public sector support. The private sector support is very limited. I would like to ask the senators, what is America planning for the private sector? In Africa, we need funding, finance, not in the form of grants.
Okay, if we could just have, we've got your excellent question. If we could move on. Thank you very much.
I'm Martin Moganzi from Uganda. I was at Arizona State University. My question is, how are we engaging the African governments to create an enabling environment for the implementation of all the programs the young Africans want to implement?
For all the programs? Okay. Okay. Next, please.
Good morning. My name is Ebuka Emebina from Nigeria. I was at Syracuse University on the public management track. My question is, how is Congress working with sub-Saharan African governments in order to create an enabling environment in terms of security for the implementation of our policies? Because if the people for whom we are going to work for are all not in a comfortable position, then really security is the bedrock for any form of investment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This young lady in the front row.
Hi, my name is Ursula Name. I'm from Gabon, and I was at Clark Atlanta University. My question will actually be about the competition when it comes to Africa. In most African countries, we have the former colonial power already using the natural resources, and now when it comes to infrastructure, we have the Asian. I would like to know where America is going to actually fit in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, one more. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Hilda B. from Cameroon. I took civic leadership at UC Berkeley in California. My question is specifically for Congresswoman Bass, and I'd like to know if there is a particular focus on the African woman, the rural woman especially, and on persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Well, we have 5 good questions. What's the role of the private sector? How do we engage more directly the African governments to implement the programs that are necessary? What is the role of Congress with respect to Africa in providing the necessary security for the implementation of programs? Where is America's place in the competition for markets and development in Africa, former colonial powers, Asia, certainly China, and what is America's role and perspective on this competition? And finally, for Congresswoman Bass, are there programs or experience that focus on African women and with particular attention to those with disabilities? So if for any of you on the panel, if you would like to undertake some of these or more than one, that would be great.
I was going to say, in regard to the private sector, there's tremendous opportunity throughout Africa. You have tremendous resources. You know, you have a continent that is blessed with lots of different things. And so as a result, that's a market. And the United States and the rest of the world are looking for markets. We want places to sell our products. You want places to sell your products. We can do that with trade agreements, you know, things like that. We can also do it, you know, again, through the private sector. And it's important that you're here. You know, you're going to be great ambassadors in the future for negotiating some of those deals. And one of the things, though, that we have to have in order for things to flow and work well is the rule of law and infrastructure. And in many countries, that's lacking, you know, to a large degree. So we have to help, you know, build those basic things. You're going to have to be very, very helpful. Again, that's why you're here, is to overcome some of these things, break down the border barriers that were mentioned earlier. And in doing so, then I think there's great opportunity for the future for Africa to be a great trading partner, not only for the United States, for the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Yes, I would just like to say, I actually wouldn't agree that the focus is exclusively on the public sector. I think there's tremendous focus on the private sector, one from the United States as well as African countries. So one area that all of us have been working on in Congress is the renewal of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, and that expires next year, next September. And we know that there's a lot of challenges to AGOA. For example, there's very few African countries that can actually take advantage of exporting to the United States. We know that there's a lot of things that are needed that would really help facilitate our private sector involvement. For example, a lot of the infrastructure issues that were mentioned before, meeting U.S. standards to export goods. So I think working, one, to renew AGOA, but also working to increase the infrastructure needs of the African countries so they can participate more with the private sector is a very important emphasis of all of our work. And we know that there's tremendous interest from the U.S. private sector with African businesses. In regard to my sister from the Cameroon, I have focused on African women in a variety of different ways, from health, leadership to business. There's the AWEP program, which you probably know about, African Women Entrepreneurial Program. I have not had a specific focus on disabilities, but I do say that there's a lot that we have done in the United States in regard to disabilities from the point of view of access as well as technology that I think would be very important to share with our African countries.
Thank you, thank you. Let me combine a couple of questions. I know that in the past 10 years, trade with China and trade with the European Union has grown more rapidly than trade with the United States, despite very active efforts from the American side. So two things. What should the United States be doing to try to improve our role and our trade relationship with Africa, and how do we engage African governments more directly in helping us make sure that those possibilities become realities?
Well, three things, if I might. To Ursula's question, very well focused about Gabon. You have a colonial power, you have China, what is the role of the United States? You focused it as a question, what is our role in terms of the economy and accessing the opportunities, both human and natural resources across the continent? My subcommittee held a series of hearings on this and put forward a plan for how we should strengthen our work on the continent, having more foreign commercial service officers, having stronger export-oriented entities within our government, EXIM and OPIC and others, engaging the African diaspora in the United States to better build bridges of relationship, economic and political and otherwise, because unlike the Chinese, the Indians, the Brazilians, the Russians, the United States has a significant diaspora community spread through every state in the United States. But there is a tension. There is a tension because we also talk about values. And so to the question from Uganda, when we meet with heads of state, we raise difficult questions about open space, about whether or not there are journalists who are being set free from imprisonment, whether or not there is civil society that is welcome, whether there is investment in basic education, so that while we are funding these exciting apps, are there folks who can use them? So we hopefully create a welcoming space for your initiatives upon your return by pushing on these values issues. We also fight for security, to the question from Nigeria. We fight for security in two different ways. One is direct, literally partnership that provides resources, training, intelligence in the work against Boko Haram, for example. But we also, I think, take the initiative on values that says we aren't going to support militaries that violate human rights, and we are going to invest in the north in Nigeria, in access to food and in food security, in access to education and in opportunity. We have spent, to Ursula's point, much of our time and energy in the last decade connecting with Africa and Africans on a human level, providing healthcare, providing education, providing support for democracy and for open societies. And that means we have missed the opportunity that the Chinese have taken, and we now need to get in that game strongly alongside them and give Africans a choice. Give Africans the decision yourselves, which nation, which model you most want as your partner going forward.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to take questions from this side, and I can't take more than 4 or so because we're going to be drawing to a close. But I know this gentleman that's been standing here and the lady next to him.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure, please.
Chris, again, your markets are growing. You can be very proud of that. What is it, Chris? 5, 6, 7 of the fastest growing markets in the world are in Africa right now.
Right.
And so as those markets grow, then you'll see a lot of private investment come in.
Very good point. Sure, of course, one more additional point from
But as much as we want, as African countries, as much as we want to trade with other countries, but first we must look at ourselves. We need to be able to trade amongst ourselves first. And my second point regarding security, I think we should be able to hold our heads of states accountable for peace and security in our country, domestically, and then regionally. And then at the end of the day, we should look at the international organization or other countries to help us with that. If we are unable to do that on our own home soil, in our own countries, then we will not be able to have peace and security in Africa.
Thank you. Thank you. Now let's proceed with the questions. We'll collect the questions, and then we'll ask the panel to respond to those that they deem most appropriate. Please, sir, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. I'm Vital Sonovo from the Republic of Benin. I was in the University of Texas at Austin. Today, the developing model of the world, of the developed nation, have shown their limits in terms of negative effect on the environment. How, as the fastest growing economy in the world, as Africans, how do you suggest that we won't follow the same negative path? How do we ensure that we develop without doing the same mistakes? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. My name is Angela. I'm from Kenya. I was at Morgan State University studying public management. I'm kindly requesting the panel to give suggestions on how governments can ensure continuity of quality services to populace, even in the presence of changing political climates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Jordan Silva from Cote d'Ivoire. As we got the opportunity to meet people from Congress, I would like to ask a question related to legislative and legislative. My question is, how can United States government work effectively with our African government to promote legislative and judicial system? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The gentleman in the white shirt. We had that question, I believe.
Yeah, I'm James Mulber from Liberia. I was at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. My question goes towards investing in the next generation of Africa, the topic in question, and it goes directly to capital investment, to be specific, the era of grant. Now, going back to the Washington Consensus Models of 1989.
Please give us a question, sir.
Okay.
I think we got your question, right? Capital investment, which undoubtedly needs to be improved.
Can I just conclude? Now, there is this issue of grant going to Africa where you have expatriates going to manage this grant, and most of this money are taken back to the United States and other places. And we have little being invested in our various countries, and more young leaders don't understand the integrated when it comes to the investments in our continent.
Okay,
so
I got
how
it.
Can we
so
handle that?
non-expats in management and control positions in your countries. Excellent. And this gentleman in blue here, please, in the front row.
I'm Abubakar Conte from Sierra Leone. I was at Rutgers University in New Jersey. My question is, investing in the next generation of Africa and the idea of global citizenship, how are these two concepts linked?
Okay, thank you very much. Then we had a question on how to improve environmental policies when it comes to Africa's future. Again, a question about how to work with governments to ensure continuity of policy, even with changes of governments. There were two questions essentially on working effectively with African governments. Good question about capital investments and the need to develop own country managerial and executive leadership for those companies. And then the question about global leadership within the context, I take it, of Africans and Americans and lots of other people sharing together their common goals. So if the panel would like to take on one or more of those questions, we'll be drawing to a close after this round.
I'll jump in if I might. First, thank you for the question. Assuring continuity of services at the local level. Kenya has restructured from a unitary federal government to counties. And although, yes, a round of applause for counties. Although the experiment in county government has not moved as swiftly or strongly as we all had hoped, this is a real opportunity to change from a winner-take-all presidential system that then has higher stakes for everyone to a devolution of power where at the local level, local electeds are more accountable and are more engaged. It also allows younger people a chance for leadership. As a very young man, I was elected to county office. I never would have been elected to the Congress that young, but I could take a role in my county. And so I am hopeful that across Africa, we will see more local accountability, more empowerment by young people, in particular through the mechanisms that these make possible, in ensuring corruption-free, regular delivery of quality services at the local level. We have a bad example in terms of the environment, in terms of how we have generated power. Africa has the most abundant renewable energy resources on the planet and is the continent that can and should lead the development of hydropower, geothermal, wind, and solar for this century, and you should insist that that be the priority for each of your governments. Last, if I might, the investment in the next generation of leaders. One of the things I have liked most about the Millennium Challenge Corporation and its model, and I have visited their sites in several countries, in Ghana and Tanzania, for example, is they do not bring 50 Americans to manage a large project. They bring 2 or 3, and then look for and hire Ghanaians or Tanzanians to be the mid-level managers. We have to walk the walk in terms of inviting the empowerment, the engagement, the leadership of young Africans in delivering on programs in partnership, or we are not sustaining the opportunities that we talk about together. Last, in terms of where we go forward, there are role models for the entire world in Africa. When Karen and I were in South Africa together, we were struck that the Parliament had just finished hosting a delegation from Iraq, and there was a delegation about to come from a Central American country that had both of which had had terrible civil wars and great tension. And they were coming to South Africa because it was a great model. Its Truth and Reconciliation Commission, its progress post-apartheid, and in particular, its remarkable leader, Nelson Mandela. You have the leadership models for the future of our world. You are the leaders who can inspire young people and young leaders all over this world. Thank you for the gift of your time and your vision and your capabilities.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Could I ask, since we're closing, if you could also just add any closing remarks briefly, and so we have a hard close here. But Congresswoman, please do. But if you have any further remarks on questions that have been raised, please, now's the time to do it, and we will close the session.
Sure. Let me just build on that. You know, as I look around the room and know that this is a group of leaders that I know I will take tremendous pleasure in watching where you go 5 years and 10 years from now. I know that you represent leadership in a variety of different ways, business, government, et cetera. I would just like to encourage you, especially in answer to some of your questions, that obviously the answer lies with you, but it's not all about government or business. I'd like to encourage you to really think about NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and the type of community organizing and activism that oftentimes takes place when you're trying to change a government, I think has been a fundamental tool in our democracy here to hold government accountable. It's one thing to be elected, all of us are elected officials, but we know that we have to respond to a constituency. Some things they push us to do we might not want to do, but our job as elected officials is to respond to that constituency. And so when you go back, whichever road of leadership you decide to follow, I hope that you think about the type of leadership that happens on the grassroots level, the type of leadership that would answer the question of how do you hold people accountable, or how do you make that transition when one regime comes in and the other one goes out, that the answer lies with you, with your leadership, and continue to think about grassroots organizing that really doesn't fall in the category of business or government.
Wonderful point. Senator Boozman?
In regard to the legislative assistance program, I think that's really important. That's something that we need to do a much better job of. And we do have programs that specifically do that. I know the House has the House Democratization, whatever we call that now. That's what it was called when I was in the House. But programs like that are very, very important that talk about budgeting, libraries, just basic things. The other thing, though, is that we have to remember that most of your countries are very, very young democracies.
Right.
They just hadn't been around very long. And so the fact that you are struggling, our country struggled, other countries struggled, we still struggle. But again, the fact that you're here, this is the way that we're trying to deal with those problems. And but it is something that's very, very important that we can do a better job. I know that the three of us are committed. When your leadership, members of Parliament are over here, we do our very best to meet with them, try to get to Africa as much as possible. So those are the ways that you change the world, is through personal relationships.
Thank you. Ms. Vangadasamy?
I will agree to that. There's a famous quote by Margaret Mead, and it goes like this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." I believe we can make change. I believe change does not happen, like I've said before, from top to bottom. Like Congresswoman Bass has been saying, it comes from the bottom. And there's lots of wisdom at the bottom. And people need to understand that. We have to understand that. We are the generation of change. And we can do it. And together as a collective group, we have the power, we have the ability, and we can start it, like Senator was saying. It's relationship building, one-on-one, talking to people, loving people, empathy, engaging people. Service is not about ourselves, but it's about people. I remember the Associate Dean at Humphrey School said, it's a human problem.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a perfect way to end a wonderful session. I want to thank each of our panelists for your wonderful contributions. I want to thank our audience for your fantastic questions. And I look forward to a continuing discussion and, of course, to our next event. And I thank you all very much for being part of our conversation today. Thank you.